The boy stared blankly ahead, his body twitching uncontrollably. Then, a heavy slap hit his face, followed by another slap. What happened to punish him like this? It turned out that 200,000 francs were missing from the principal's office, and the boy's lack of an alibi, coupled with his previous bad behavior, made the principal suspect that he had stolen the money. However, the boy insisted that he had not done it. The principal did not believe him and slapped him for half an hour to force him to confess. The boy couldn't bear it any longer and fiercely strangled the principal's neck. 2 teachers outside the door heard the noise in the room and rushed in to separate them, and the principal was able to escape. At this point, the principal had lost his patience. At this boarding school, scenes of the principal punishing students occurred almost daily. Over time, the students became accustomed to it, and they would team up to fight against the teacher. These children's family conditions are deplorable, some have divorced parents and some have lost their parents. The lack of parental care and companionship also led to their strange personality and extreme behavior. Mischief has become a common occurrence for them. To outsiders, they are a group of children without hope and future. The name of this school, made up of troubled teenagers, is also shocking and is called the bottom of the pond. On this day, Matthew, a musician who was at a low point in his life, was hired to come to this school as a school warden. Just entering the school, he sees how destructive this group of students can be. A prank by the students made Maxence, who was responsible for managing the school's clutter, hurt his eye. What shocked him even more was the way the principal handled the situation. The first thing Principal Hassan did was not to send Maxence to the hospital, but to gather all the students and demand that the peacebreakers come forward and confess their guilt, or they would all be locked up in turn and have all recreational activities cancelled. But the students were united, and no one came forward even though the principal was shouting from the stage. The principal used his best trick. He gave Matthew a list of students and asked him to choose a name at random as the first person to be confined. Matthew was reluctant, but forced by the principal's authority, Matthew picked a name, and student Bernie Fass became the unlucky one, for which Matthew felt guilty. He soon learned from his departing colleagues that the real peacebreaker was Leclerc. The first class was about to begin when Matthew saw through the glass that the students in the class were making much noise. He strides up to the podium, ready to establish his authority in front of the students, but accidentally falls. One student immediately picked up his work bag and passed it around, teasing Matthew. At that moment, the principal passed by, and the students stopped their pranks. Faced with the students' pranks, Matthew not only did not tell on them in front of the principal but also covered for them. The action also quieted the children. Then, Matthew called out the peacebreaker, Leclerc, and prepared to take him to the principal to admit his fault. When he saw that the principal was holding the students by their ears for corporal punishment, he changed his mind and punished Leclerc to take care of Maxence, who was hurt by his prank, until he recovered. Subsequently, Matthew did not rush to teach them knowledge, he asked the children to write down their dreams on paper. To his surprise, each child wrote carefully, and their ideals varied. Matthew was very happy, which showed that these children still had dreams in their hearts and did not give up on themselves. The next day, Matthew went to see Maxence in the dormitory, and Leclerc took good care of him. Maxence said that there was once an orphan who committed suicide at school. Everyone said he was hopeless, but he was just like these kids. They are mischievous and just desperate for attention. And Leclerc, with his head bowed on the sidelines, recognizes his mistake. Matthew approached the principal to resume the children's recreation, since he had punished the child who had played the prank. When the principal asked him the name of the student who had pulled the prank, Matthew was reluctant to tell him. The principal reluctantly agrees, warning Matthew not to get into trouble. When Matthew returns to his dormitory, he finds that the locker has been forcibly pried open and the contents of the briefcase are missing. The students thought the briefcase was hiding some secret and stole it. They hid in the bathroom and studied the sheet music, making it all over the floor, but no one could read it. Matthew is angry. When the PE teacher finds out and intends to punish these kids, Matthew again helps to relieve them, saying that he is teaching them to read music. When Matthew returned to the dormitory, he heard the children singing a sarcastic song about him. Instead of getting angry, he helped them point out the wrong pronunciation. As he lay in bed, what had just happened began to come back to him. Even though these kids had no talent and sang badly, they loved to sing, and Matthew felt he had to do something for them. Under Matthew's care, the students grew close to him, and he would even secretly tell the kids the answers during exams. After class that day, the principal found out that Pierre had drawn a cartoon that insulted him and put him directly in the guardhouse. During lunch, Matthew talked with other teachers about Peppino. Peppino was an orphan, his parents died in World War II, the PE teacher said. But Peppino always believed that his father would come to take him home on Saturdays, and he looked forward to it every day, each time in vain. During the conversation, Pierre's mother came to visit Pierre. According to school rules, students are not allowed to have family visits during their confinement. In order not to disappoint Pierre's mother, Matthew concocted a good-natured lie, telling her that Pierre was doing well at school, but that he had gone to the hospital for a toothache and would not be back until the evening. A week later, Matthew began the project of forming a choir. He distinguished each child's timbre by his singing voice and gave them the right choir position. But they hadn't studied music at all, and it was hard to even distinguish a high from a low tone. When it was Peppino's turn, he couldn't sing at all. To take care of his dignity, Matthew assigned him the position of command assistant. The student with very poor tone, Matthew did not let him idle, he was arranged by Matthew to do the music stand. In this way, a choir without any foundation was formed. Matthew began to teach from the most basic scales, and slowly the choir sang better and better. Most importantly, the children's mindset slowly began to develop a shift. They began to look forward to lessons and singing. Although it is not a great art, Matthew enjoys it and he succeeds in stimulating the interest of the children. But the principal was full of disdain for this move, while Matthew responded to Principal Hassan with a confident smile. A week later, a new student came to school, Mondaine. Mondaine had just been released from juvenile detention, had violent tendencies, and had stabbed a teacher, and from his appearance, it was clear that he was a tough guy. Matthew sees him smoking and goes up to stop him, and Mondaine doesn't take him seriously at all. In class, Matthew wants to get Mondaine to join the choir, so he asks him to sing a song to hear it. Mondaine laughed and said, "You must not like what I sang." Matthew said, "If you don't sing a few sentences, how do you know I don't like it?" As a result, he sings a vulgar song he learned from Juvie. Matthew invites Pierre, who has ended his punishment, to join the choir, but he sticks his tongue out at Matthew contemptuously. Subsequently, Mondaine approached Pierre and wanted him to be his follower, but Pierre did not agree. Mondaine began to insult Pierre's mother, saying how his mother was, and the two then fought. Then, while Mondaine was confined, Pierre slipped out of school and ran to his mother's workplace, and looked at her from afar. His mother was Pierre's only dependent and he did not allow anyone to insult her. In the evening, when Matthew returned to his dormitory, he heard someone singing in the classroom, and the voice was very beautiful. As he approached, he saw that it was Pierre, who was secretly practicing the choir's songs. Pierre's angelic voice moved Matthew, and at this moment, Matthew understood what Pierre was thinking, and he decided to save face for him. "Whatever you want to do," Matthew controlled his emotions, "you have to join the choir from tomorrow. It's a school rule." Pierre became the subject of Matthew's instruction, and he did not disappoint his teacher, becoming a solo tenor in the choir. When Pierre's mother came to visit, Matthew explained to her about Pierre's musical talent and that he thought Pierre deserved a better education. The school, which was deadly dull, became happy with every student under the influence of Matthew's choir. They no longer fight or play pranks. Even Principal Hassan, who played with paper airplanes like the kids, and played soccer with the kids. It was on this day that they took this class photo. But a few days later, an unfortunate thing happened. When the PE teacher was running with the students, Mondaine suddenly disappeared, along with the headmaster's 200,000 francs. The police soon returned Mondaine, but no matter how much the principal pressed and beat him, Mondaine refused to admit that he had stolen the principal's money. Mondaine was sent to juvenile hall again. Looking at Matthew, who saw him off, Mondaine gave a meaningful smile. The principal is angry that he has not found the missing money. He blames Matthew for all this and asks him to disband the choir. Fortunately, PE teachers believe that sports and music are essential elements of national unity. With his support, Matthew's choir was able to practice in secret. Matthew wrote privately to the school's sponsors, telling them that the school had formed a wonderful choir and inviting them to come and enjoy it. That day, Pierre's mother came to visit him at school again. Matthew received her and sat beside her. Matthew could not move his eyes as he looked at Pierre's mother. Matthew fell in love with her the first time he saw her. And all this, also be seen by Pierre. While they were talking, Pierre suddenly threw a ball of paint on Matthew's head. Looking at the mischievous son, the mother left in anger. Matthew not only did not get angry, but also caught up with Pierre's mother to defend Pierre. He thinks that Pierre is just trying to monopolize his mother's love by doing this and is not willing to share it with others. He told Pierre's mother that he hoped she would let Pierre go to Lyons Institute of Music, where he could apply for a scholarship. Because Pierre is really talented in music and shouldn't waste his time here. In the next rehearsal, Matthew cancelled Pierre's solo part. Because he wanted Pierre to slowly understand that mischief does not let gain anything, but will lose more. That day, Matthew received a letter from Pierre's mother, inviting him to talk alone. Matthew thought that love was coming and he was so excited that he wore his best suit to the appointment. Pierre's mother said that since she met Matthew, her life has changed completely. She said she had met someone she liked, but she was still hesitant to tell him. Just as Matthew was waiting for her to say her name, Pierre's mother said, "Thank you for everything, I'm lucky to have just made an engineer boyfriend." Disappointed, Matthew grabbed a drink to cover his embarrassment, but his innermost thoughts of wanting to raise Pierre as a musician did not change. That day, the school's donor, the Countess, received a letter from Matthew and brought her friends to watch the school's choir. However, when the Countess asked whose idea the choir was, the principal immediately replied, "It was my idea." The performance began and these children, who were not looked upon by everyone, now became the pride of the school. Pierre, on the other hand, stood sullenly on the sidelines and could only watch the other students perform. When the chorus reached the tenor part, Matthew suddenly stopped and then let Pierre start the solo. At that moment, Matthew saw the gratitude in his eyes. The performance was a success, and the Countess was fascinated to hear. But a few days later, another thing happened in the peaceful school life. While cleaning the toilets, Maxence found 200,000 francs lost by the rector, hidden in a crack in the wall. It turns out that the person who stole the money was not Mondaine, but another student in the class, Corbin, who wanted to use the money to buy a hot air balloon and escape from school. Matthew rushed to tell the principal about it, but the principal said he was busy right now. Because of the great success of the choir, he had won the favor of the government educators and was preparing to go to the Countess's commendation meeting, and had no time to pay attention to this matter. Just as the principal was attending the conference, a phone call broke his beautiful dream and he rushed back to the school. But it was too late. The school was already engulfed in a roaring fire. And on a distant hill, Mondaine was proudly admiring his handiwork. The school was burned down and 60 children were nowhere to be found. Just when everyone was at a loss for words, a song came from the distance and Matthew appeared with the children. It turned out that Matthew took advantage of the principal's absence and took the children on a trip to the hills. But for Principal Hassan, all his chances disappeared with the fire, and in anger, he fired Matthew. Before Matthew left, he boldly said the words from his heart that, "You are a most failed principal because you have absolutely no idea how to educate children." At the last moment of leaving, Matthew would have loved to see the children come to see him off, but there wasn't a single person on the road. As he walked around the corner, he saw a lot of paper airplanes on the ground. Then, he heard the familiar song, one after another paper airplanes from the window floating down, carrying love for Matthew. At this moment, Matthew felt more gratified than ever. At the end of the story, the principal gets the punishment he deserves after a report from the students. Pierre also left the school and went to Lyons Institute of Music, to pursue his musical dream. Many years later, he became a world-renowned music master. The film not only won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film but also received high praise from the media. Although it does not have a gripping plot, a colorful emotional drama, or a dazzling hero and heroine, it heals everyone's heart with its heartfelt songs and sincere and tender emotions. The arrival of Matthew is not only the spring of this group of abandoned problem teenagers, but also the spring of Matthew.